Have you ever come across a 1968 Lincoln penny in your pocket change and wondered if it might be worth more than just 1 cent? Well, you're in for a treat. Today, we're going to uncover the fascinating story behind this little copper coin, its history, its hidden treasures, rare errors, collector interest, and the surprising values it can fetch today. The year was 1968. Lyndon B. Johnson was president. The Vietnam War was raging. Martin Luther King Jr. had been assassinated earlier that year, and America was in the midst of social and political upheaval. Amid all of that, the United States Mint in San Francisco was quietly producing one of the most intriguing Lincoln cents in coin collecting history, the 1968 penny. This was the first full year the San Francisco Mint was back to producing regular issue coins after a long hiatus. Prior to 1968, San Francisco had primarily been used for proof coins or as a bullion depository. So, the 1968 South Lincoln Center marks a return to circulation coinage, and collectors took notice. Now, let's take a closer look at the coin itself as part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. The obverse, or front, of the coin still bears Victor D. Brenner's famous portrait of Lincoln. The reverse shows the classic Lincoln memorial design created by Frank Gasparo. The S mint mark under the date tells us it was struck at the San Francisco Mint. Unlike other mints, San Francisco produced fewer coins for circulation in 1968, about 261 million of these pennies. That may sound like a lot, but it's actually a relatively low mintage compared to other years, especially from Denver and Philadelphia. Now here's where things get exciting. The 1968 Lincoln penny has a few known varieties and errors that can make it quite valuable to collectors. The most famous of them is the double die obverse. This means that during the minting process, the die that struck the coin had a slight misalignment, creating a doubling effect on the lettering or numbers. If you look closely, you might see strong doubling on the words "Liberty," "In God We Trust," or even the date itself. These double die errors are rare, and that's exactly what makes them so desirable. Some of these error coins have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their condition and the strength of the doubling. If you have a 1968 penny, it might be worth pulling out a magnifying glass and taking a second look. Let's talk about value. A regular 1968 penny in circulated condition is typically worth just a few cents. But once you get into uncirculated condition with full original red color and know where, values start to rise. A beautiful, red uncirculated 1968 Lincoln Cent graded MS-65 by PCGS or NGC can sell for $10 to $20. But if you happen to have one of the double die errors in a high grade, you could be looking at anywhere from $300 to over $1,000. The exact value depends on the severity of the doubling, the coin's condition, and the current demand among collectors. Older collectors especially have a deep appreciation for the 1968 penny. It sits at a crossroads in American coinage history. It's vintage but not ancient, common but with potential for rare treasure. Some collectors seek out full rolls of 1968 pennies, hoping to find a rare error coin. Others collect them as part of a full Lincoln memorial set, which spans from 1959 to 2008. No matter how you look at it, the 1968 penny holds a special place in the hearts of coin enthusiasts. So, the next time you're digging through an old jar of change, take a second look at those pennies, especially the ones with an S under the date from 1968. What may look like just another old coin might actually be a small piece of American history, and possibly worth much more than face value. Did you ever imagine that a simple penny sitting in your old change jar might be more than just 1 cent? Well, today we're diving deep into a coin that's older than 4 decades, often overlooked, but surprisingly fascinating. This is the story of the 1978 Lincoln penny. The Lincoln penny, featuring the portrait of our 16th President Abraham Lincoln, has been a familiar face in American pockets since 1909, but each year of production has its own tale to tell. And 1978, although it might seem like a quiet year in coinage history, has more going on than meets the eye. It's 1978. Jimmy Carter is president. Gas is 65 cents a gallon. The Bee Gees rule the charts, and Star Wars is still blowing minds across America. Meanwhile, at the U.S. Mint, over 8.5 billion Lincoln pennies were struck. Yes, you heard that right, billions. The 1978 penny was made in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But not all are created equal. The ones from Philadelphia have no mint mark. Denver pennies carry a tiny D just below the date. And San Francisco produced proof coins, those mirror-like beauties made for collectors only, with a delicate S mint mark. Most of these pennies were made from copper, 95% copper and 5% zinc, to be exact. It wasn't until 1982 that the composition changed to mostly zinc. So, every 1978 penny has that old-school, heavy copper feel. Some collectors even save them just for their metal value. But that's not the only reason they're worth keeping an eye on. In circulated condition, the kind of penny you'd find in your pocket change, a 1978 Lincoln penny isn't going to buy you a cup of coffee. It's usually worth face value, maybe a few cents more if it's in decent shape. But uncirculated examples, those that never made it into circulation, can be worth more. A bright, untouched 1978 penny from Denver or Philadelphia, graded MS-65 or higher, can sell for around $10 to $25. Not too shabby for a coin that cost a cent to make. Now, here's where things get interesting. Every now and then, the mint makes a mistake. And collectors love mistakes. Some 1978 pennies have rare errors, like off-center strikes, double dies, or even coins struck on the wrong planchet. There's a known example of a 1978 penny with a noticeable doubling on the date and the word Liberty. That's what we call a double die. If you happen to have one of those, you could be looking at hundreds of dollars or more, depending on condition. Then there are off-center strikes, coins that were misaligned during minting. Some are just slightly off, others dramatically so, with parts of the design missing. Collectors go wild for those. A dramatic off-center 1978 penny can fetch $50 to $100 easily. Even more elusive are pennies struck on the wrong planchet, like a 1978 penny accidentally struck on a dime planchet. These are rare, but they've been found, and they can command hundreds, even thousands, at auction. So why does this little copper coin draw so much attention? Because it's a slice of American history. Because every scratch and ding on a 1978 penny tells a story. Maybe it sat in a gas station till in Ohio, or was dropped by a child in California. And maybe, just maybe, it's hiding a rare error that could be worth a small fortune. So, next time you're digging through your change or flipping through your old coin albums, take a second look at that 1978 Lincoln penny. It might not look special at first, but like many things from the past, it's full of stories, surprises, and maybe a little value too. If you've ever emptied your pocket and spotted a 1984 D Lincoln penny, you might not have given it a second thought. But what if I told you that this small copper coin holds a story of American craftsmanship, subtle errors, and the attention of collectors across the country? Today, we're diving into the rich history and hidden value of the 1984 D Lincoln penny. So, pull up a chair, grab a warm drink, and let's take a nostalgic walk through numismatic history. The year was 1984. Ronald Reagan was president, the Los Angeles Olympics brought the nation together, and at the Denver Mint, millions of Lincoln cents were rolling off the presses. More specifically, over 6.5 billion 1984 D pennies were minted that year. That D mint mark just beneath the date stands for the Denver Mint, one of the main facilities responsible for churning out our nation's coins. At a glance, the 1984 D penny looks like any other cent, bearing the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, a design that's been with us since 1909. But, as every collector knows, even a common-looking coin can hold surprises. Most 1984 D pennies were perfectly normal. But here's where things get interesting. A small number of these coins display a fascinating error that caught the eyes of sharp collectors: doubling. While the most well-known doubling for 1984 comes from the Philadelphia Mint, where Lincoln's earlobe appears doubled, there are rumors and discussions in the collecting community about similar anomalies in the Denver coins. So, if you've got a sharp eye or a good loop, it might be worth checking those old change jars. Although a confirmed double die for the 1984 D isn't as famous as the one from Philadelphia, that doesn't stop collectors from hunting. Now, let's talk value. A typical 1984 D penny found in circulation is still worth just 1 cent. No surprise there. But in mint state condition, especially if it's graded MS-65 or higher, the story changes. In pristine condition, these coins can fetch between $5 and $15, depending on the quality. And for those with extraordinary luster and strike, they can go even higher in auctions or among serious collectors. But what drives the value of a coin like this isn't just its age or condition. It's the story, the minting history, and yes, even the thrill of the hunt. Collectors, especially those who remember using these coins in the 80s, often seek out coins from specific years as part of complete Lincoln cent sets. And with over a century's worth of Lincoln pennies out there, the 1984 D holds its own place in the timeline. There's something nostalgic about it too. Maybe you remember your kids dropping pennies into piggy banks. Maybe you used these coins at a diner or tossed a few into a wishing fountain. That little copper coin carries memories along with its metal. For older collectors, especially those 65 and up, coins like the 1984 D Lincoln penny serve as tiny time capsules, reminders of another era. And whether you're in it for the potential value, the history, or just the joy of discovery, the 1984 D deserves a spot in your collection. So next time you come across a penny from 1984 with that little D mint mark, don't toss it aside too quickly. Give it a look. It just might be more than spare change. It might be a piece of history. We're diving into a piece of American pocket change that most folks have likely handled hundreds of times, maybe even thousands, without ever thinking twice about it. I'm talking about the humble 1987 Lincoln penny. But here's the twist. Beneath that familiar copper coating lies a surprising story, one that includes a bit of history, a touch of mystery, and yes, a chance for hidden value. So if you've got a jar of old pennies sitting on a shelf or tucked away in a drawer, you just might want to dig through it by the time we're done. Let's start with a bit of background. The Lincoln cent has been a part of American life since 1909. That was the year it replaced the Indian head penny, and it was the first regular U.S. coin to feature a real person, President Abraham Lincoln, on the obverse or front of the coin. By the time 1987 rolled around, the Lincoln penny had already become one of the most recognized coins in the world. But something else had changed too. In 1982, due to rising copper prices, the U.S. Mint switched the composition of the penny from 95% copper to a mostly zinc coin with just a thin copper coating. So if you're holding a 1987 Lincoln penny, it's made of 97.5% zinc and just 2.5% copper. Light in weight, but still heavy with history. In 1987, these pennies were minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver with a D mint mark; and San Francisco with an S mint mark on proof coins only. Philadelphia produced over 4.6 billion pennies that year. Denver minted about 4.5 billion. And San Francisco made just over 4 million proof coins. So, as you can see, they aren't exactly rare in number, at least not at first glance. But as every seasoned collector knows, it's not always about how many were made. It's about how many special ones survived. Even though the 1987 Lincoln penny isn't considered rare overall, there are era coins from this year that can make your eyes and your wallet pop. First, there are double die varieties. These are pennies where the design was accidentally struck twice during the minting process. On some 1987 pennies, you might notice a doubling on the date or the word Liberty. While these are rare, they've been reported and can sell for anywhere from $50 to over $200 depending on condition. Then there's the off-center strike error. This is when the coin wasn't properly aligned in the press, resulting in a coin that looks like it was cut off on one side. The more off-center it is, without losing the date, the more valuable it can be. Some of these errors have sold for $100 or more. Another notable error is the clipped planchet, where a piece of the coin is missing due to a mistake in the blanking process. Even a small clip can make a 1987 penny worth $10 or $20 or more to the right collector. And let's not forget about coins that were struck on the wrong planchet. Though extremely rare, a 1987 Lincoln penny struck on a dime or foreign coin planchet could easily bring in hundreds of dollars. So what's a 1987 penny worth today? If it's a normal circulation strike and it's seen better days, like most have, it's still worth 1 cent. But if you've got one in brilliant uncirculated condition, especially from a mint roll or a sealed mint set, it could be worth $1 or $2 to a collector. A proof penny from San Francisco, still in its original government packaging, can fetch between $2 and $5, sometimes more if it's graded high by a coin grading service. And remember those error coins? That's where the real excitement begins. Some 1987 error pennies have sold on online auctions and coin shows for $300 or more, depending on rarity and condition. Here's a neat little fact. The reverse design on the 1987 penny, featuring the Lincoln Memorial, was actually designed by Frank Gasparo and had been in use since 1959. It wasn't until the year 2009, a full 22 years later, that the reverse design would change to commemorate Lincoln's bicentennial. That means your 1987 penny sits in the middle of a long and iconic design run. One that many collectors today look back on with nostalgia. So next time you spot an old penny in your change jar, don't pass it by too quickly. Give it a look. You never know if you're holding on to an error variety, a proof, or just a piece of American coinage that tells a deeper story. 1988 Lincoln Penny. A coin that may look ordinary at first glance, but trust me, it holds a secret that's made collectors all across America sit up and pay attention. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's talk pennies, because this little copper coin from 1988 might just surprise you. The Lincoln penny has been a part of American life since 1909, the year we honored Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. For decades, it's been in our pockets, our piggy banks, and our cash registers. But the 1988 penny, minted during the tail end of the Cold War and the Reagan years, has a unique place in coin collecting history. That year, the United States Mint produced over 11 billion pennies. Yes, billion with a B. They were struck in both Philadelphia and Denver. Most of them are common. But among those billions, a few rare pennies slipped through the cracks, and they've been quietly building buzz ever since. In 1988, the U.S. Mint was transitioning between different coin designs, specifically the style of Lincoln's bust and the tiny details in the coin's engraving. That transition led to a now famous variety known as the 1988 reverse of 1989 penny, also called the close AM variety. If you flip a regular 1988 penny and look at the reverse, that's the side with the Lincoln Memorial, you'll normally see the letters A and M in the word America spaced apart. But in a rare handful of 1988 Philadelphia pennies, the Mint accidentally used a reverse die meant for the 1989 design, where the A and the M are very close together, almost touching. That tiny detail created one of the most sought-after penny errors in modern collecting. Now, you may be wondering, just how rare is this coin? Experts estimate that only a few thousand 1988 close AM pennies ever made it into circulation. That's a drop in the bucket when you consider the billions produced. Most people who had won likely spent it on a candy bar or tossed it in a change jar without a second thought. But for collectors who know what to look for, it's like finding a four-leaf clover in a field of grass. A standard 1988 penny in circulated condition is only worth 1 cent. But the 1988 close AM variety? That's a different story. Depending on the condition, these rare pennies have sold for hundreds, even over $1,000 at auction. In mint state, meaning the coin has barely seen any use. Prices can easily hit the $500 to $1,000 range, and even higher for pristine examples graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC. That's a huge return for a penny most folks wouldn't even glance at. And because more people are becoming aware of this error, collector demand is on the rise. That means if you've got one, it's worth holding on to or getting it professionally graded. So how can you tell if you've got the rare 1988 close AM penny? First, make sure the penny is from 1988 and has no mint mark. That means it was struck in Philadelphia. Then, flip it over. Look closely at the word America. If the A and the M are almost touching, with barely any space between them, you might be holding the rare close AM variety. A magnifying glass or coin loop will help you see the details better. And if you're unsure, it's always a good idea to get a second opinion from a coin dealer or have it graded. It's amazing, isn't it? A tiny coin from your pocket, worth just 1 cent, could be worth hundreds or more, all because of a small design detail that was never meant to happen. The 1988 Lincoln penny reminds us why collecting coins is more than just a hobby. It's a treasure hunt, a connection to history, and sometimes a surprising reward for a sharp EYSO. Next time you're going through your change jar or an old box of coins, take a moment. Look closely. That ordinary-looking penny could be anything but. Let me take you back to the early 90s. It was 1991. George H.W. Bush was president, the Gulf War had just come to an end, and America was beginning to see the rise of the internet. But while the world was changing, something familiar continued its journey through our pockets and change jars. The Lincoln penny. And in Denver that year, the U.S. Mint struck a coin that might just surprise you with its story. Today, we're talking about the 1991 Lincoln cent. The Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for over 80 years by 1991. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln, it became the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. And by 1991, millions of Americans had handled a Lincoln cent nearly every day of their lives. But what makes the 1991 D penny worth talking about? The D mint mark stands for Denver. That year, the Denver Mint struck an astonishing 4.6 billion Lincoln cents. Yes, billion with a B. That means the 1991 D penny is, at first glance, a very common coin. But here's where things get interesting. Even among billions, some stand out. Over time, collectors began to find certain 1991 D pennies with unusual traits. These weren't just worn coins, these were pennies with clear, unexpected minting errors. And that's where the real value begins. Some 1991 D Lincoln cents have been discovered with die cracks, off-center strikes, or even double dies. A double die, in case you're unfamiliar, happens when the coin design is struck twice slightly off from the first hit, creating a sort of shadow or doubling effect, usually on the date or the lettering. These errors can raise the value of the coin dramatically. In circulated condition, coins that have passed through many hands, a 1991 D penny is still worth just 1 cent. But in uncirculated condition, particularly in mint state grades like MS65 and higher, the story changes. A pristine 1991 D Lincoln penny graded MS67 by a major grading company can fetch anywhere from $30 to $100 at auction. And if it features an error like a double die or off-center strike, it could sell for even more, sometimes in the hundreds depending on rarity and demand. Now you might be asking, why would someone pay that much for a penny? The answer lies in collector demand and rarity. Older collectors, especially those who grew up during the heyday of coin collecting in the 1950s and 60s, remember a time when filling a Lincoln cent album was a true treasure hunt. Today, they still search for those high-grade, unique coins to complete their sets. And there's something else, nostalgia. For many Americans, the Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a piece of our everyday history. It reminds us of simpler times, of pocket change from a paper route, or the jingle in our pockets on a Saturday morning. So if you're sifting through your old coin jars, keep an eye out for a shiny 1991 D penny. Check for sharp details. Look closely for doubling on the date or lettering. Examine the coin's edges for off-center strikes or other unusual marks. And most of all, treat every coin like a potential mystery waiting to be solved. The 1991 D Lincoln penny might seem ordinary, but for the careful collector, it holds value, history, and maybe even a hidden treasure. So don't overlook those small coins in your drawer. You never know which one might be worth far more than just a cent. Ladies and gentlemen, coin collectors and history lovers, welcome back. Today, we're diving into the fascinating story of a small copper-plated coin that many people overlook, the 1994 Lincoln penny. But don't be fooled by its everyday appearance, because within the world of rare coin collecting, even a common coin can hide a valuable secret. The Lincoln penny has been an American icon since 1909, introduced to honor President Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. The design we're talking about today, known as the Memorial Reverse, began in 1959 and ran through the year 2008. And nestled right near the end of that era is the 1994 penny, an unassuming year, but one that holds some interesting surprises. In 1994, the U.S. Mint struck Lincoln pennies at 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia coins have no mint mark, Denver ones carry the familiar D, and San Francisco struck proof coins for collectors, marked with an S. Over 6 billion Lincoln cents were minted in Philadelphia alone that year, and nearly as many in Denver. That makes it a high mintage year, which means most 1994 pennies you find in your pocket change aren't going to break the bank. But here's where things get interesting. Some 1994 pennies have errors, rare and valuable mistakes that slipped past quality control. The most famous among them? The 1994 double die obverse. This variety shows clear doubling on the word liberty or on the date itself. These errors don't happen often, but when they do, collectors pay attention. If you spot one of these, you're not just holding a penny. You could be holding a coin worth $50, $100, or even more depending on its condition and the strength of the doubling. Condition is everything. A circulated 1994 penny is usually worth just face value. But a 1994 Lincoln cent in uncirculated condition, especially with a red, glossy surface, can fetch between $1 and $10. Higher still if it's a rare variety or a proof coin from San Francisco. Let me tell you, if you find a 1994 proof penny still in its original set, untouched and gleaming, it might be worth a nice premium to the right collector. Now, you may be wondering, why would anyone collect a modern penny like the 1994? Here's the truth. Every collector knows that today's common coin could be tomorrow's treasure. And some people are building date sets, where they collect one coin from every year. Others are error hunters, looking for double dies or off-center strikes. For them, the 1994 penny is a vital piece of the puzzle. In fact, some 1994 error coins have already sold at auction for impressive sums. A 1994 penny with an off-center strike or a dramatic die clash. Those kinds of coins have crossed the auction block for over $100. And in some rare cases, even more. Now that's not bad for a coin that started life worth just 1 cent. So the next time you see a 1994 Lincoln penny in your change jar, don't be so quick to spend it. Take a good look. You might just have a small slice of history, or even a valuable treasure hiding in plain sight. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the world of coins. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow collectors. And remember, every coin tells a story. It's up to us to listen,